Hey guys, so SSJ Evan here. Let's talk about Evangelion for I don't know how long, however long this is. This was always one of my personal projects that I've always pushed off to the side. It's like one of four that I've always wanted to do. And now I'm guessing I'm gonna finally do it, or just a rough version of it. I originally wanted to do a video essay for this kind of video and write out an entire script and, have like edits or Adobe Premiere footage, playing in the background. But I think I'll just settle for just a monologue podcast type video. So let's talk about Evangelion. So recently, I watched, I'd say a couple weeks ago now, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, You Cannot Redo, I believe. And it was the last iteration of the Evangelion Rebuild franchise, and Evangelion in general, at least from Hideaki Anno, who is the director. So, you've probably heard from others, or if you've been on the internet long enough, you've probably heard of this show, this anime, or you may even, if you're one of my friends, you probably heard it from me. And upon asking, like, why is this your favorite anime, Evan? I probably just gave very surface level answers of, oh, it's a good show, I like the story, or I relate to Shinji, or something of that nature. But today we'll start going into certain details of the story I really like, and portrayals of each character that I really like. And yeah. So to talk about how I got introduced to this show, I think I watched it, I want to say 8th grade in middle school. I was introduced to it by my older online friends who said this show is really good, you should watch it. So I did in middle school, but of course, having a middle schooler brain, I didn't really fully get what was going on. And I think by the end of it, I was left with more questions than answers. And I'm sure that's how a lot of people's first time watching Evangelion is, because it's a show where the plot, or the narrative at least, it's very you have to think about it, I think. In some ways, it is very cut and dry, oh, here's what happened, here's X, here's Y. But other parts of the story are sort of pathways and serve as other things, serve as ways to describe other things within the show. And I think that was one of the cool things about Evangelion. So flash forward to high school now. I ended up rewatching it my freshman or sophomore year of high school, and I just fell in love with the show. Shinji, there'll be spoilers, of course, so if you don't want to watch this, don't watch it. Or maybe there won't be spoilers, but I'll just talk very broadly. I won't go into specifics, hopefully. But spoiler warning, just in case. So Shinji is this kid, 14-year-old kid. He has been alone majority of his life, has had no parental figures, and not really a purpose until his father, who abandoned him, calls him back saying, we need you to do this job, without acknowledging Shinji. And of course, Shinji, the reasons why I like Shinji as a main character, even though some other people may hate him because, he isn't your stereotypical shonen protagonist where, he overcomes trial tribulation in a very linear sense through the power of friendship, or, some other training arc, when I first watched Evangelion, Shinji felt like a human being in a way. I know it's still a character on the screen, but it felt like he had more emotional and character depth than what I was used to watching at the time. Because I used to watch just strictly shonens or whatever animes, and I never really had a character who would just crumble under pressure or not want to interact with other characters. And it goes to show that how much thought went into Shinji as a character. Because Shinji, one thing I learned from Evangelion was that it's kind of what you put into it, because I watched a lot of YouTube videos and read a lot about, the plot line, the history behind it, the director, Hideaki Anno, what his spiel was. And basically, the short story short was Hideaki Anno was depressed when he was making this. And this was like his sort of like medium for coping with his depression, and how Shinji reflected him as a person. And what Shinji does in the story is that he's very afraid of interacting with others for fear that he doesn't want to be hurt, because he doesn't know how to interact with others. He doesn't know how to take responsibility for himself. He's just there. He's just human. He doesn't have a purpose. He does what others tell him to do, and he believes being alone. He craves interaction, yet he's so scared of it. And that's compelling one enough, to me at least, because I feel like at some point in my life, well, it's not a history about me, it's about why I like the show, but at some point in my life, I related to what Shinji was going through in that moment, and introduced two other characters, Asuka and Rei, the other two childs who pilot the robots along with Shinji. Asuka is also another child who has been abandoned by both her parents from a very young age and has her own set of mental issues. However, instead of retreating like Shinji did, Asuka looks to get attention and satisfaction for her life through other people, the attention of other people. Because if all eyes are off her, she wouldn't want to look at herself. And Rei is straight up just chilling. Like, she don't have a personality. She just does what she's told. She's literally a copy and dry order taker. And her character development was that she learns to become human by making her own decisions throughout the show. And if we want to talk more besides the children, Misato is the older guardian who ends up taking care of Shinji. However, Misato doesn't understand, or also had mental issues where she would feel connection with other people within the show through physical contact and all that stuff, but not really know how to communicate properly or how to be a proper parental figure to Shinji at the time. So the end of Evangelion and the final 2 episodes of the TV anime series were one of my favorite endings of almost all anime. Basically, they ran out of money and they just said, screw it, we're just going to do what we wanted to do for these 3 characters. So it goes into a deep dive of all the things that have been plaguing the characters throughout the main narrative of the series. So it dives into Asuka's, why she is so hell-bent on getting other people's attention, and it introduces Rei and how she feels as though she's a clone or doesn't have any purpose of her own. And it goes into Shinji for the final episode, where Shinji realizes, 1, what he's been doing to himself by hurting himself and not wanting to be with others, and 2, it offers a sort of happy ending where Shinji could come to the realization that, maybe the world isn't so bad, and that maybe his life is worth living because he has the power to decipher and make up what he wants in his life. He doesn't have to follow what is told. He begins to develop some sort of autonomy within his life. And that's where the series ends off, where the screen cracks, and Shinji thanks everyone who has got him to this point, and smiles and says, maybe this world is worth living in, because he finally learned that it's up to him. Reality could be whatever he wants, because he understood that, well, yes, it will be painful. Yes, there will be bumps. Yes, I will hurt other people. But the same token, he also recognized the flip side of that is that there's joy, love, and peace in the world along with that. And what people, or the general consensus, well, my general consensus, is that the last two episodes demonstrate what Shinji saw in the Human Instrumentality Project. Now, the Human Instrumentality Project is a thing that was hinted at throughout the entire series, and it's basically causing human genocide and merging all souls into one so that there'll never be pain again and never be horror again, because everyone has given up their humanity. So because Shinji could pilot the robot, Shinji is basically like God. And by the end of the TV anime series and the end of Evangelion, Shinji has chosen to start the Human Instrumentality Project. That's where the end of Evangelion movie comes in, where everyone's dying, but eventually, so what they say episode 25 and 26 is Shinji's own soul merging with others in the Human Instrumentality Project, where Shinji learns that through the Human Instrumentality Project that maybe life is worth living, hence why he rejects it and only allows, or not only allows, but also brings back Asuka from the Human Instrumentality Project, so they could be two separate beings, and that's why they end up on the beach. However, Shinji couldn't live with his decision that he made to cause mass genocide, or he couldn't understand or what he did, and I believe that's why he started to choke Asuka towards the end. And of course, we know that Asuka put her hand on his face and said, "How disgusting," and then Shinji stopped, and that's where the movie ended. So I believe that Shinji made the right decision in the end to reject human instrumentality, and just seeing that whole ending was kind of crazy. I didn't really understand what was going on at the time, but surface level watching it, it was pretty cool. But then delving further deeper into it, because I wanted to learn more about the show and what really things meant. And these are all my own personal opinions about what happened in the story, because you could go through many different theories and other people's opinions about the show, but collecting others and learning about the show and making my own informed opinions, this is what I've come up with for the show. And bring in the Rebuild of Evangelion. So the Rebuild of Evangelion was a set of 4 movies that was worked on, again, by Hideaki Anno, and I didn't really understand the purpose of the 4 movies until the very end, which I really enjoyed, because throughout the journey, Shinji makes some sort of different decisions than he has in the past. For example, in Rebuild Evangelion 2.0, here Shinji was more like a shonen protagonist at the end, where he saves Rei by finally deciding what he was going to do, and he was going to fight. And it wasn't anyone telling him to fight. Shinji made the decision on himself to fight and was going to do it. Evangelion 3.0 deals with Shinji waking up and mass genocide has occurred. The world is in shambles, and he wakes up to both Asuka and Misato rejecting him, when previously in Evangelion 2.0 they encouraged Shinji for taking responsibility for himself. So now Shinji's left in this sort of confused state, along with the audience wondering what has happened throughout the entire movie. So we learn that Shinji, honestly, I forgot what happened in 3.0. I'm not gonna lie. All I remember at the end was that Shinji was with Kaoru, and then Kaoru blew himself up. So that was crazy. But yeah, because it's been a while so much. Yeah. So anyways, 3.0 plus 1.0 starts off with, honestly, 3.0 plus 1.0. It's a close. I don't know if I like it better than episode 25 and 26 of the original series, but I really enjoyed 3.0 plus 1.0. I thought this was one of the best anime movies or best end to a series I have ever seen. But of course, I'm biased because I love the show and I love everything it brings. But Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 begins with Shinji. Shinji realized what he has done. He has caused mass genocide within the earth because of his decision, and his best friend is dead. The only person who ever would stuck out for him and loved him was dead, and he watched him die right in front of his eyes. So of course, Shinji is depressed. The opening narrative of 3.0 plus 1.0 is one I fucking love, alright? Seeing Shinji do nothing, depressed, doing nothing, not wanting to eat, not wanting to walk. Hell, he had to be force-fed. It's so, I don't know, it just, for me, adds depth to his character. Like, wow, this is, like, he understands what he did, and he regrets it. And he's in this state where he doesn't want to live, yet he doesn't want to die either. Because he ends up eating the food that's given to him just enough to sustain himself, yet not fully committing to talking to anyone, seeing anyone. He can't even look anyone in the eye. And the opening movie just goes through Shinji's, I want to say just depression. Like, I love this part. I honestly do. And it goes to show that Shinji as a character wasn't flat. And I really appreciate that. He had rising, falling actions. He understood the weight. He didn't really understand, but like, he couldn't fathom the weight of his decisions and how to live with them. And I appreciate that in a character. Because it seemed more human to me. It seemed more flawed. And I really appreciate that when watching like something of this sort. And the scene where Asuka had to force feed Shinji just because Shinji didn't want to eat, and him running out, was one of the best scenes, I think. It was very discomforting to watch, yet you felt compelled as a watcher, as a viewer, to just watch and see what was happening to Shinji. People don't like Asuka for what she did, but I think that was her way of trying to make Shinji realize, like, what he has done, and, you know, him not doing anything isn't going to change anything. The narrative then follows up with Shinji taken out by his now older friend to go fishing or go gather supplies for the village. And he tells Shinji to fish. And he says, it doesn't matter if you don't catch anything, just fish, man. Like, if you catch something, you catch something for the village. If not, it's fine. We only get fish every, 4 months? It's fine. And I love this scene because it's brilliant. Because Shinji says he can't do it. He can't fathom himself doing it. He's never done it. He's scared. Yet, he still ends up doing it. And, of course, he doesn't catch anything. But we see later on within the story, probably 15 minutes later, Shinji's by himself fishing doing something of his own will and autonomy. And it's a stepping point or breaking point for his character where he's making a decision for himself. And that was something I really liked that I really enjoyed watching and seeing that part right there. Eventually, stuff happens and the Rei he once knew dies right in front of him. Again, just like his best friend. And by this point, it flips back to Asuka getting ready to depart on their journey against Nerve and Shinji's father. And Shinji here makes a decision once again for the first time in a while to go see his father. And this is where you as a viewer know that Shinji is different in a way. He's now ready to face his demons, ask his father why is he doing this, and just have an honest conversation. Eventually, lots of build up, the movie comes, and Shinji talks to his father and understands that why his father's doing the things he's doing. And his father realizes, this is much spoilers, that what he was doing was wrong. And then, Shinji then becomes God again, basically, and stops human instrumentality once again. However, this time, he lets every character go free. He doesn't let Asuka come back like he did on the beach. He visits them, says his final goodbyes to them, and lets them be at peace within their own lives. And at the end, Shinji is now prepared. He's now alone on a beach, prepared to. I thought he was gonna die. I honestly thought he was gonna die. Just, create a world where. Basically, he becomes God and creates a new world. And I thought he was just gonna die and just leave his friends and all his loved ones to be. But we have the new character Mari come in, and Mari's quite the confusing character. I don't really understand, because it's hinted that she's a clone like Asuka, but at the same token, it's weird because she was introduced in 2.0. So Mari serves as this weird character and plot-driven device, and comes back for Shinji. And the best part of the movie was at the end, where Shinji has grown up, and him and Mari take a step into the new world. Because it seemed as though the way they portrayed Shinji was that he was now free from his sin. He was now free from all the burdens that he had carried, or he has learned to carry them with him in this new world, this new unknown world that he was a part of. And this right here was the best effing, at this point, I didn't know if I was crying or if I was just to be happy. It was just something phenomenal, and I loved it. Evangelion has been there for me since high school. Let's just say high school. And seeing the journey Shinji takes towards becoming a normal human being, a responsible human being, learning to live with his mistakes, live with his issues, is very reflective of my own personal journey through feelings of depression, suicidal tendencies, and things that I am not proud of as a person. And to see Shinji come out of that, it's akin to, what one of these YouTube comments said, it's akin to watching your son grow up in a way. For Shinji learned to be responsible. Of course, he's an animated character, and the trials and tribulations are made up through the show. However, I still believe there's some truth to storytelling and something that can be taken from media, shows that people can relate to and people could understand. on an emotional and logical sense. So I relate through my own personal journey, and that it's not done. I'm nowhere. I'm not nowhere. I'm not near where Shinji was at the end of the movie. However, I could say that I'm trying to get there. And it's just inspiring as a show and as a person to see something like this and think to yourself, hey, maybe if he could do it, I could do it too. Of course, he's not real, but as long as that feeling is there, I would like whatever I was watching. And I don't know. This is why I love Evangelion. I thought the movie was a great movie. I don't know how long this video is going to stay up. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. We'll see if it sees the light of day. But life is pretty crazy, and I don't know. Anyways, that's why I love Evangelion. I love it because it relates to my own personal journey, and it serves as a motivator to change in my own life. And it's a joy to watch. It's fun to watch. It's fun to analyze. Because once you communicate with others and learn that other people like this show, it's fun because you get to talk about it, see what their thoughts are, because it's a very opinionated, not opinionated, but like a lot of people form their own plots, bases, and ideas, theories, and notions of the show, and it's very fun reading them. So, this is my farewell to the show. I really like it, and this was one of my personal projects I've always wanted to complete it for a while now, ever since I watched the show. So, thanks for watching if you're here. If not, you just skip through it. It's cool too. Let's see how long this video stays up. Might get embarrassed or might take it down. We'll see. God, I have so many projects I'm working on, and like I keep bouncing around from project to project. It's kind of weird, but later.